And it's also true that women would rather be the mistress of a king than to be the wife of a peasant.
That's so true.
I have a friend that lives, I'm not going to say where he lives, but he's a black man that lives in an area that's predominantly white, and his entire dating life is being a bull. Women contact him, and then he basically sleeps with the wife either in front of the husband or the husband drops her off because she wants to have that experience. And there's a lot, like he's busy constantly. What does it take to keep a woman interested in a man on a long-term basis, like having her committed to you so that she's genuinely enthusiastic, she has genuine burning desire for men, like I describe in my book?
So you're talking about vetting, and there's always that one person you're spinning plates, and then there's the one that makes the most effort and whatnot, and then it's happened to me that I'm seeing the one girl making the most effort, but then in my head I'm like, I don't know, I think I could do better.
Mhm.
So you think men are hypergamous?
Nah, not in the sense or regard that women are, because you know what what you notice about men when you study them and you really talk to them about their dating experiences and romance is that if they find a woman that is a truly a good woman, a man will never leave her, right? I hear a lot of women complaining, like especially when we do these ladies' night podcasts. Oh, guys aren't committing to me. They don't want to stay with me. They just kind of run off on me. And it's like, okay, well, if you're a good woman, why would the guy leave? Because at the end of the day, like if you tick off the boxes, like you're respectful, you're useful in his life, you give him the most mind bending sex he's ever had that you've never given to anybody else, like you truly enthusiastically love this man with all your heart,
Yeah,
you're going to do things for him that other women aren't willing to do. And why would he get rid of you?
yeah.
Is what I often encounter when I have these conversations. So I just don't, yeah, you got to watch their behavior again. You got to watch the woman's behavior.
I read this quote. It's like, if you treat him like a king will show up, but most women don't do that.
This is true, and it's also true that women would rather be the mistress of a king than to be the wife of a peasant.
That's so true. Yeah, that is very true. That is very true. I always, I was watching the Titanic the other day, and I was like, man, I guarantee you, if that guy brought his side piece, his sugar baby on that boat, she would have been a lot more grateful
Mm,
than the wife.
mm.
It's so interesting. It's so interesting. Is there anything that you like to know? Because I've been dating for like the last 6 months, and it's wild out here.
Mhm.
And my red pill moment, like I said, was about 6 years ago. And I don't have to tell you my whole life story now, but the worst part of it is when the girl that I worked so hard for to give my life savings and bought the house, she looked at me in the eye and she said, "I wish you've cheated on me, so I felt I could have been with more of a man." Yeah, that was the worst thing, and that's when I came across your stuff, Donovan Sharp stuff, all those guys, and um, yeah,
You were
man,
too nice. You were too loyal. You gave her too much of what she wanted.
I did everything my mom told me to do, man. I'm a single mom too, right?
Yeah.
So you're I never contemplated erasing myself, but I was like, man, I could just on the 427, I could just drive really fast and hit the bunker, and it'll be over because now I have tenants that I don't want, and she's out there and this whole thing, and this is why having the before the train wreck, because it's all you're doing. You're just going on a drive
Mhm.
and you're just listening to to somebody articulating everything the way you feel
Mhm.
for hours and hours and hours, and that's why it's important. That's why I want to do this with my channel too, to hopefully do that. But be that as it may, with that experience has not made me resent women more than now that I'm a bit of a high value male,
Mhm.
and I'm on the other side of hypergamy, and I'm on the other side of the cheating, and that's corrupted me more because I see how people lie. I see the lies. I see how the disrespect, and that's corrupted me more than anything. I mean, I go on Tinder, the amount of ethical non-monogamy, the acronyms that they have on there.
They're always gross women, though.
What's that?
They're mostly gross women, though, that have that.
Yeah, and they post the husband's picture. That's so
Yeah.
humiliating.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, can we meet and record me doing stuff to you? He wants to see it. Just
I have a friend that lives, I'm not going to say where he lives, but he's a black man that lives in an area that's predominantly white, and his entire dating life is being a bull. Women contact him, and then he basically sleeps with the wife either in front of the husband or the husband drops her off,
Yeah.
because she wants to have that experience. And there's a lot, like he's busy constantly.
It's
Right?
the hot wife lifestyle.
I don't know if they're all hot, but I mean, he showed me a couple of pictures of the women, and some of them are good enough, sort of thing. But you
No,
know,
it's called the hot wife lifestyle. Like that's the new term for it.
that's what they want to call it, sure.
Yeah, but they're
But
not.
no, they're not. But basically, like they're wives that want to cuck their husbands, and then he's the bull in the equation. I was talking to I mean, I know a couple of psychologists because I mean, even at this point, sometimes I run into guys and I say, how did you learn about me? And he's like, oh, my therapist told me about you and said to read your book and all this sort of stuff. So I'm like, okay, so that's interesting. So I've talked to enough therapists and psychologists now, and I've asked them all the same question, man. I said to them, I go, what does it take to keep a woman interested in a man on a long-term basis, like having her committed to you so that she's genuinely enthusiastic, she has genuine burning desire for men, like I describe in my book, over the long term. And they all say the same thing. I think it's really hard, if not impossible, but what I've seen that works the best is you have a relationship that's unequal, in the sense or regard where it's open on your end as a man and it's closed on her end as the woman.
Right.
Meaning she has competition anxiety about who you are as a guy, whether or not you're having fun with options or it's an imagined threat. But as soon as women have your commitment, they change, their behavior changes, they don't treat you as well. You tend to lean more into the utility, like an accessory in their life, almost like an ATM in some cases. um I boil it down to three things. Like, these are the three things that really kill relationships over the long term. It's proximity, it's familiarity, and it's exclusivity.
Mm.
And this is why you don't generally want to move women in to your house. I mean, believe it or not, you can have children with a woman and not live together, right? I had a conversation with Tristan Tate. I did a webinar with him. It's private on my email list, but um, he describes in detail over the course of an hour how he has multiple children with multiple women. They live in separate houses. He looks after them. He visits them. He loves them. He cares for them, but he doesn't live with them. He lives with his brother, and he runs his business that way so he can stay focused on his purpose. So proximity is one of them. Familiarity, meaning she knows you, she knows your schedule, she knows everything about you. Like,
Routine.
when you live together, women know everything about you.
Yeah.
I think that this notion that we've been told about living together, I think it's one of the big contributors towards the breakup of committed long-term relationships.
It's gotten worse now because a lot of people work from home as well.
Right. And women always push for it, right? And it's, as
Yeah.
soon as she pushes for it, hey, let's take it to the next step. Maybe we can live together, and then maybe we can get married. And it's like da 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 da. And it's like, the more you do that, the more risk exposure you have, and the better things become for her. So it's all upside for her and downside for you. And then, in the sense of regard to the relationship, where the enthusiasm and the love and the romance and the sex, that you have, or that you used to have all the time, that starts to dissipate and go away. And then the third thing again is exclusivity, but it's your exclusivity to her. She has to be 100% committed to you sexually and, um, on an emotional level. Women are different from men.
100%.
When women cheat, they cheat on an emotional level. It's generally over in the relationship, right? Like, you say that you see these women on Tinder and they're married and they want to have some fun outside of the marriage.
And it,
Most of
I've
the
even
time,
heard I've even heard like I have the perfect husband. I'm like,
yeah,
why? What's going on with him?
yeah,
Well, he's perfect. So
perfect. He's rich.
yeah,
He's successful,
he's younger
but
than me.
but she's not horny for him. She's horny for
Oh
you,
my
me, whoever else, right?
God. Yeah.
So the exclusivity component, like, she has to be committed to you 100%, but there has to be an uncertainty in her mind about you, whether you exercise it or not, whether it's imagined or it's real. This is from psychologists, right?
Yep.
They're noticing this in relationships, that committed relationships last longer and are better and are stronger together when there's some limitations on proximity, familiarity, and exclusivity on your end. She has to be 100% committed to you. You don't want to poison the well. You don't want to share her. Absolutely not. That's disgusting. All right, guys, I really hope that you enjoyed that clip. If you want to check out the full-length podcast episode, you can find that right over here. Also, make sure you visit my website over here where you'll find my supplements, the opportunity to book me privately one-on-one for coaching, and most importantly, my new School of Unplugging, which you'll find on the courses tab. Newer to the channel, hit subscribe.